hanging. I'll be...
Good morning and welcome to Riverside Community Church. So glad to see you and you and you and you and you. And if you're joining us online, Facebook Live or on YouTube, thank you. Please say hello in the comments. We'd like to connect with you and just touch base, make sure everything's good in your world, or just to see how things are going, not to assume that things may or may not be good. All right, let's stand together as we sing. 2, 3. The power of sin and darkness, whose love is mighty and so much stronger, the King of glory, the King above all kings, who shakes the whole earth with holy thunder, who leaves us breathless in awe and wonder, the King of glory, the King above all kings. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross, you would lay down your life, I sing for all that you've done for me. Who brings our chaos back into order, who makes the orphan a son and daughter, the King of glory, the King of glory, who rules the nations with truth and justice, shines like the sun in all of its brilliance, the King of glory, the King above all kings. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy, worthy, worthy. Oh, this is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Ooh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Whoa, 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 whoa. Let's turn around and welcome each other here to Riverside Community Church. Let's continue our singing. Yeah, before the world was made, before you spoke it to me, you were the King of Kings. Yeah, you were anchor for my soul. Through every storm, I will hold to you with endless love. All my fear is swept away in everything. I will trust in you. There is hope in the promise of the cross. You gave everything to save the world you love. And this hope is an anchor for my soul. Our God will stand unshakable, unchanging one. You who was and is to come, your promise sure. You will not let go. There is hope in the promise of the cross. You gave everything to save the world you love. And this hope is an anchor for my soul. Our God will stand unshakable. Your name is higher, your name is greater. All my hope is in you. Your word unfailing, your promise unshaken. All my hope is in you. Your word is higher, your name is greater. All my hope is in you. Your word unfailing, your promise unshaken. All my hope is in you.
Dear Lord, we're so thankful for your love and your honest hope. This week has been such a difficult week, and yet just life is difficult for many of us. And we pray that you'll help us to recognize that you are our hope, that you've already won the battle, and that you're here to help us through all of life's storms. We pray for everyone that wasn't here today, that they'll receive your blessing of love, and help them and everyone they meet to know that they are so loved. We pray especially for Jeff this morning to bring us words of encouragement and hope that only you can give. Thank you, Lord. Amen.
Please be seated.
So I've often been told that I have the perfect face for radio, which is maybe why radio has always been one of my favorite mediums of communication. I love listening to the old radio shows. And of all the radio shows, one of my favorite is one called Paul Harvey. Paul Harvey did a thing called The Rest of the Story. Is anybody familiar with The Rest of the Story? He would start a story, and then he would give you a little twist which if you had known it from the beginning would have explained everything. And I remember the first one I heard is called The Light Show. On the night of April the 14th, the ocean liner, the Californian, had progressed to within 1,500 miles of her destination, Boston Harbor. Midnight. Second Officer Herbert Stone is due for watch on the bridge. Reporting for duty, Stone finds his apprentice seaman glued to a pair of binoculars staring toward the black horizon. He, the apprentice, has sighted a steamer in the distance. He can make out the ship's masthead light, her red light, and a glare of white lights on her afterdeck. Stone asks the apprentice to try for communication by means of the Californian's Morse lamp. A bright beacon signal is flashed. No answer from the steamer. "Will that be all, sir?" Stone nods. The apprentice leaves to make a record in the patent log. Now, Second Officer Stone is alone on the bridge. Glancing idly over the water, a white flash catches his eye, a white flash of light in the direction of the distant steamer. Stone scratches his head, picks up the binoculars. 4 more white flashes, like skyrockets bursting in the heavens. Stone notifies the ship's captain. Over the voice pipe, the captain asks if the flashes appeared to be company signals. Stone cannot say for sure. The captain then requests further communication attempt through the Morse lamp. By now, Stone's apprentice has returned to the bridge. The beacon signal is employed once more. Still no answer from the steamer. Lifting the binoculars to his eyes once more, Stone observes 3 more flashes in the continuing light show. But now his attention is drawn to the steamer's cabin lights. They seem to be disappearing as though the steamer were sailing away. At 1:40 a.m., Stone sees the 8th and last white flash in the night sky. In 1 hour, all the steamer's lights have vanished into the blackness. It is not until 4 a.m. that anyone on board the liner Californian learns the rest of the story. Let's pray. Dear God, thank you for this opportunity to learn about the hope that we have in you, about what you have for us in troubled waters. May it be your message today, your words. May we draw closer to you and be in your presence this morning. We ask these things in your Son's precious and holy name. Amen. Now, I love suspense, as my family can attest to, so we're going to have to get back to the rest of the story later. As you probably know, the New Testament is kind of anchored by 4 Gospels, the 4 stories of Jesus, written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. 3 of them are what we call synoptic Gospels. They tell the story, whereas John is not a synoptic Gospel. He tells concepts, and so he takes things a little bit out of order and a little differently. So if we take the 3 synoptic Gospels, the 3 story Gospels, each of the writers, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, were each after a kind of a different concept. They were coming at it from different angles. There were different reasons for them writing these particular stories. Right? Luke gives us a good deal of the birth and early years of Jesus, whereas Mark kind of jumps right in, almost starting at the crucifixion. So when we take these 3 different stories, these 3 different ways of looking at Jesus' life, if we find a story that is in all 3, we should immediately think that's a story that's of special importance. Somehow that is bigger, that is more elemental than the others. There's a reason. We always learned in music back in high school, if you have the same notes in a row, the same musical phrase, you never repeat them the same way. You want to emphasize them, you build them up. There's some reason why that should be emphasized more. And so if we have the same story in all 3 of the synoptic Gospels, there's a reason it should be emphasized, but it's very interesting, extremely interesting, when we have 2 stories in a row that are consecutive in all 3 of the synoptic Gospels. That's something that should really focus our attention. This is God saying, this is really important. I want you to look at this. So we're going to go right there today. And we're going to start in Matthew chapter 8. And in Matthew chapter 8, we have Jesus at the point where he's going and healing large numbers of people, preaching, and getting really tired. His ministry has been, hello, there we go. Ministry has been growing. And as his ministry is growing, more and more people are flocking to him. More and more people are asking for his healing. More and more people are seeking him. And as anybody who's worked hard in any field will tell you, the more recognition you have, the more stressful it is. And ministry is no different. The more you're reaching people, the more you're bringing people to the Father, the more your energy is going out. And that's where he is, and he says, I need to take a step back. He says, I need to just step back for a moment. And he gets onto a boat. And this is where we are. In Matthew 8:23, it says, as he got into the boat, his disciples followed him. And suddenly a violent storm arose on the sea so that the boat was being swamped by the waves, but he was sleeping. Now, I spoke a couple of months ago, and we talked about another story in which a boat was being swamped by waves, and the one who was talking to God was found sleeping. In that instance, we were talking about Jonah, who was running from God. And here, we're talking about Jesus, who is God, sitting in this boat. And as God is in this boat, and the boat is being assailed by waves, this boat is being rocked on the storm, we find God himself sleeping in the boat. And I think so much of our life we do just that. We look at everything that's going crazy around us, and we think God is sleeping through it. And we think, how could God be sleeping through this horrible storm? Does he not know what's going on? Sunday night, we were in Dallas, Texas. Sunday night, we were flying home from Dallas, Texas, or so we thought. But the news may have told you a little differently. We got a message at 2 o'clock in the afternoon for a 9 o'clock flight that our flight was canceled, and the next flight they could get us onto was Tuesday morning. And we absolutely had to be home. It's a Sunday night. There's no two ways about it. We had to be home. And we told the airline that we had to be home. We told God we had to be home. We told everybody that would listen we had to be home. God disagreed. He said, you know what? Things are okay. The world's still rotating, even if you don't make it home exactly on time. And as stressed as we were, and as much as we could point everything that was going to go wrong because we weren't going to make it home, God said, you look at the big picture here. That's a real minor inconvenience. It's like just a little bit of a storm. You're okay. I can sleep through this one. It's not that big a deal. Why don't you take a nap? I'm like, but God, we need to... No, take a nap. And this is exactly what's going on. We've got the disciples going, everything's going nuts, we're all going to die. And Jesus saying, what are you so worried about? I'm sleeping. Can you give it a rest for a minute? And he says to them, why are you fearful, you of little faith? And then he got up and said, I'll take care of it. Fine. You know what? You guys have little faith, I'm going to show you. And this has always stood out to me. Why are you fearful, you of little faith? And this phrase is repeated in all of the different versions of this story. If we take a look at Mark 4, and we have the same point in time, we have the same buildup, and what we have really building into it there is, in addition to all these healings, Jesus is talking through parables. He's explaining the kingdom of heaven through parables. And we have right before this story in Mark chapter 4, we have an explanation from Mark as to why Jesus used parables. And immediately after that, we jump into Mark 4:35, and it says, on that day when the evening had come, he told them, let's cross over to the other side of the sea. So they left the crowd, took him along since he was already in the boat, and the other boats were with him. A fierce windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking over the boat so that the boat was being swamped. But he was in the stern, sleeping in the cushion. So they woke him and said, Teacher, don't you care that we're all going to die? He got up, rebuked the wind, said to the sea, silence, be still. The wind ceased. There was a great psalm, and he said, why are you guys fearful? Do you still have no faith? And if we jump over to Luke chapter 8. And again, we've got this set of parables and Luke telling us why the parables are being told and why he's speaking through parables. And then we get to Luke chapter 8, verse 22. It says, one day, he and his disciples got into a boat, and he told them, let's cross over to the other side of the lake. So they set out, and as they were sailing, he fell asleep. Then a fierce windstorm came down on the lake. They were being swamped and were in danger. They came and woke him and saying, Master, Master, we're going to die. He got up and rebuked the wind and the raging waves, so they ceased, and there was a calm. And he said to them, where is your faith? As they see the evidence before them, all science would have pointed to the fact that they were about to die. They're on a little rickety craft with the wind and the storm tossing it about. They're terrified. They wake up God who's sleeping, and his response is, why do you have so little faith? As everything around us is falling apart, as we say there's hope, we're in the midst of storms that are going to destroy who we are, God says, where is your faith? It is so easy right now to open up the news and look at the darkness. And to say, look how dark things have gotten. Look how bad things are. Look how far we have turned from God as a culture. You know that in John, Jesus over and over talks about the time of light and the time of darkness. And he says, you'll have light while you're with me. And then he says, before he goes to his crucifixion, he says, it's nighttime. He says, the darkness has come. The darkness that we see today didn't start in the news this week. It didn't start in the news last month. It didn't start a year ago or 5 years ago. It's not new to the 21st century. It has been here since his crucifixion. The world's a dark place while he's there preparing a place for us. And he sent his companion to walk with us in this dark place. But he says, why are you looking at the darkness? Why are you talking about the darkness? Why are you looking at the wind and the waves and the storm? You don't have faith to see that they've already been stopped. And I think a lot of the time we spend our lives having a little storm and remembering that storm and reliving that storm and experiencing that storm long after Jesus has already rebuked the storm and brought the calm. Can you imagine the disciples after Jesus rebuked the storm coming to him and saying, but we're going to die, there's a storm, and him saying the storm's over, and them saying, but we're going to die, there's a storm. It would be a ridiculous story, right? But I think that's how we live our lives, and I think that's how Jesus saw that instance. They had Jesus in the boat. Was the boat going to sink with Jesus in it? Not only was Jesus in the boat, but his closest friends were in there with him. Was the boat going to sink with Jesus and his closest friends in the boat? Is your boat going to sink with Jesus in it? If Jesus loved the disciples through all that they put him through. And remember, we love to focus on Judas. But the truth is, all of them abandoned him. All of them betrayed him. All of them turned on him. And he loved them with all his heart. If he loved them, do you think he loves you any less? Let me give you a hint. He doesn't. He was here with them for you. As you are going down in the boat, you're focused on the boat saving you, and you're not focused on the one who's already fixed it. A few years ago, I love music. I can't sing anything, but I love music from all genres. I put on my Amazon Music, I put it on my station, and it will go from hard rock to classic rock to Broadway musical to Chris Tomlin. It's all within the span of a few minutes. But one of the concerts I got to see, so I got to see Simon and Garfunkel old friends coming together after years and years and years. And that I think, or who, see, not picking up at this point. There we go. Illustration in evangelism a bit, but as high as you can. And the illustration given is like this. We're over here. I'm not much of an artist either. We're over here, and God's over here. That's God the Father. And in between is this dark chasm called our sin. And we don't have any way to get across that chasm. And so the story goes that Jesus died, and his cross goes right here. And this is given as a very frequent evangelism tool. But I think if we actually look at this correctly, we can start to see the picture of my favorite Simon and Garfunkel song. This isn't just sin, but this is all the troubles in our lives, all the storms, all the wind. This is the troubled water. And Jesus says, like a bridge over troubled water, I lay myself down. For us, that's exactly what he did. Like a bridge over troubled water, he laid himself down. He didn't say you won't have trouble. He didn't say you won't have storms. He didn't say you won't think the boat's going to sink. He said, I've already laid myself down across it. I've already given you the bridge to cross it safely. I'm there. I've already calmed it for you. Can't you see that yet? He didn't say things aren't going to get bad. He said, I've already fixed it. I've already fixed everything that's going to go wrong in your lives. So last Sunday, I was at a church. Some of you may know my absolute favorite praise song of all time, right? My absolute favorite praise song, and they started. And the beginning lyrics, Here, sing it for me. For I take a breath before. You've been so, so good to me. Oh, the never-ending, over the overwhelming, never-ending, what's the next word? Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, that's what I thought. And then I see the lyrics up on the screen, and it says, oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, selfless love of God. And at first I thought, yeah, well, his love is selfless. But there's something missing in that. There's something missing by taking out reckless. And I asked the worship leader there, I said, why would you change reckless to selfless? And he said, but reckless has a negative connotation. I said, don't you think God's love is so incredibly reckless that the only word for it is reckless, that it's so, recklessness is without any regard for the potential negative consequences. It says, I'm willing to throw it all away. We're talking about a God who steps out of heaven for you. Come on. There's nothing more reckless than God stepping out of heaven to come for me. Yes, it's selfless, but he risked everything for me. And he didn't do it so that I would have a mansion to live in the future. And he didn't do it so that my bank account would be good now. So if that's what he did, he kind of failed. He did it so that I wouldn't have to tread water in those troubled waters alone. He did it so that when the storm came, I could see that he had already rebuked it and it would end. And so he looks at the disciples and he says, you of little faith. Because he says, how can you not see that I came so that that storm would already be done? How can you not see? Do you not know who I am? And he follows the, you have little faith with, after everything you've seen, how can you still not know who I am? After everything you've seen, how can you not know that God with you means you're going to make it through this? Means God will continue to be with you. It means even in the darkest of times, God is there holding your hand. God is there in the boat. And if it feels like he's asleep, it's because he already has rescued you. It's not because he's turning a blind eye as to the troubles you're going through. It's because he's already rescued you. And then I find it fascinating that in every one of the synoptic gospels, we get this story, and immediately after, they get to this region called the Gerasenes. And we take a look, 8:26, of the Gerasenes, which is opposite Galilee. When he got out on land, a demon man from the town met him. For a long time he had worn no clothes and did not stay but in the tombs. Right? And in each of the Gospels, we have this demon-possessed man. In Mark, we have this discussion, two demon-possessed men. But the idea in all of them is we have this demon-possessed man who approaches Jesus and immediately knows who he is. Right? When he saw Jesus, he cried out, fell down before him, and said in a loud voice, "What do you have to do with me, Jesus, you Son of the Most High God? You don't torment me." The 12 closest friends Jesus has on earth don't think when he's in it. And yet a demon recognizes him and calls him by name. We sit and wallow in our own torment, in our own storms, and fail to recognize that already rebuked the storms we're going through, and yet the demons around us know him by name. Think of the insanity of that. The disciples say, "What's going to happen? We're going to die." The demon pretty much says the same thing. What's going to happen? I'm going to die because I know you. Whatever demon is creating that storm in your life, Jesus has already cast him out. When he got out on land, a demon-possessed man from the town met him. For a long time he had worn no clothes and did not stay in a house but in the tombs. And when he saw Jesus, he cried out, fell down before him, and said in a loud voice, "What do you have to do with me, Jesus, you Son of the Most High God? I beg you, don't torment me." For he had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. Many times it had seized him, and though he was guarded, bound by chains and shackles, he would snap the restraints and be driven by the demon into deserted places. "What is your name?" Jesus asked him. "Legion," he said, because many demons had entered him, and they begged him not to banish them to the abyss. A large herd of pigs was there, feeding on the hillside. The demons begged him to permit them to enter the pigs, and he gave them permission. The demons came out of the man, entered the pigs. The herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and drowned. And when the man who tended them saw what had happened, they ran off and reported it in the town and in the countryside. The people went out to see what had happened. They came to Jesus. They came to Jesus and found I just dropped my spot. They came to Jesus and found the man the demons had departed from, sitting at Jesus' feet, dressed and in his right mind. The demon says, "I know you have the power over everything, and you have the power to destroy me." And so Jesus gives mercy even to the demons to do what they asked, drive them into the pigs. the unclean of unclean animals. A message given to the Jewish people. The demons are the heart of uncleanness, and even in that, Jesus shows them mercy. We're trying to understand a God whose love we have trouble associating with reckless. And yet it is a God who is so reckless, he shows mercy on his enemies, on demons themselves. And the people are afraid. And the eyewitnesses reported to them how the demon-possessed man was delivered. Then all the people of the Gerasene region asked him to leave them because they were gripped with great fear. So we have disciples who should know who Jesus is. They get a storm and they're afraid that they're going to die even though Jesus is with them because they don't know who he is. They get saved when Jesus does what Jesus always does, which is rebuke the storms in their lives and says, I'm going to carry you through this. And the demon immediately recognizes who Jesus is, calls him out by name. Jesus casts the demons, showing mercy on them, and bringing the demon-possessed man to a place of comfort and sitting at Jesus' feet, well-dressed. And this terrifies the people, so they want Jesus gone. Jesus comes in and cleans us out, rescuing us from the storm, and we say, get away from me, I'm afraid of what you're going to do. And I don't think that what happened there is so different from what we do now. I don't think it's so different from us saying, no, it's not reckless love, it's selfless love. We have trouble seeing the depth of his love. We are afraid of a love so great that it shows mercy even on demons. If we go back to the story I shared the last time I was up here, John 8, the story of the adulterous woman. We are afraid of a God who can look at a woman who doesn't even say, I'm sorry, and forgive her anyway. We're afraid of that God. We're afraid of that kind of love. We don't want that God with us. And so we're more content to be in a boat that is being torn about by waves and might sink than with a God who says, don't worry about it, I've got it handled, let me sleep because it's already handled. And by the way, I'm going to cleanse you of everything destroying you from the inside out. We're afraid of that God. We have such a hard time with the truth of the immensity of Jesus' love, because it's easier for us to imagine a God as a judge in a black robe telling us what we did wrong and giving us really strict rules on why it is that we've veered off course and why it is that we're condemned, because in our hearts we know that's what we deserve. And so it's easier for us to envision that God than to envision a God who is so full of love that he could rescue us, even though we don't deserve it. A God that abandons the judge's robe to instead reach out a trembling hand with a hole in it. That God, that's the God that rebukes the sea, rebukes the storm, rebukes the waves, and did before they started. It isn't until 4 a.m. that anyone on board the liner California learned the rest of the story. Neither the captain nor the second officer aboard the Californian had interpreted the white skyrocket flashes as any cause for alarm. It was a matter of coincidence that they had been seen in the first place. For earlier that night, the night of April 14th, the Californian had reversed engines and parked as a precautionary measure, halted in her course by an immense field of oceanic ice. That unscheduled stop in the middle of the sea had provided the Californian a ringside seat for an unimaginable drama. The distant steamer had intended those rocket flares as distress signals, and the Californian, only 9 miles away, might have rushed to her aid, except for one thing. The steamer was sending other distress calls by radio, and the Californian was well within range of those messages. But the Californian's radio operator was asleep. The Californian's fledgling radio operator, fresh from training school, was fast asleep in his cabin. And that night, the ship's second officer, from his vantage point on the bridge, unwittingly watched the sinking of the Titanic. My friends, Jesus isn't asleep in our boat. We're asleep, not getting that radio message. And as we lament watching the sinking of a world around us, we haven't bothered to turn on our radio yet and listen to the distress calls of a world that God loves. Let's pray. Dear God, help us hear you. Help us understand you. Help us be with you, helping to rebuke those winds and storms and waves and troubled waters, so that others may see you clearly. In your name we pray. Amen.
No place I'd rather be. No place I'd rather be. No place I'd rather be than here in your arms, here in your arms. No place I'd rather be. No place I'd rather be. No place I'd rather be than here in your arms, here in your arms. So set a fire down in my soul that I can't complain, that I can't control. I want more of you, God. I want more of you, God. So set a fire down in my soul that I can't contain, that I can't control. I want more of you, God. I want more of you, God. No place I'd rather be. No place I'd rather be. No place I'd rather be than here in your arms, here in your arms. No place I'd rather be. No place I'd rather be. No place I'd rather be than here in your arms, here in your arms. So set a fire down in my soul that I can't contain, that I can't control. I want more of you, God. I want more of you, God. So set a fire down in my soul that I can't contain, that I can't control. I want more of you, God. I want more of you, God. No place I'd rather be. No place I'd rather be. No place be seated. This morning we have been reminded that God has already gone before us. No matter what it is that we are facing, no matter the concerns that may be weighing heavy on our hearts, God has gone before. And it's thoughts like that that make moments like this in church really possible. We come at this time to return our gifts, tithes, and our offerings back to God, and they are returns. Because as we have been reminded today, God has already invested in us. He's paved the way. He's provided a bridge over troubled waters. So, in just a moment, I'm going to pray for our offering. You'll see that we have baskets to your right or at the back of the worship center. If you're joining us online, you can go to the donate link at rccfaith.org. Let's bow our heads. Father, we just come today to say thank you. In many ways, we've said thank you by simply coming to a place that you have set aside to be with us. And as we bring our tithes and offerings to you today, Lord, we pray that you would bless the gifts as they go to serve the ministry here locally and with our ministry partners throughout the region and the world. And Father, I also pray a special blessing on those who give, for in giving we also have an opportunity to connect with you because you have given so much for us. Thank you so much, Father. These things I pray in your precious name. Amen.
Dear God, when we were your foe, still your love fought for us. You have been so, so good to us. When we felt no worth, you paid it all for us. You have been so, so kind to us. Dear God, help us live in and remember always the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love you had that caused you to come and deliver each one of us. Not all of us but each one of us individually, not all of us collectively, but you saved each one of us individually with intention, each person, whoever was, whoever will be, and who is. That is who you came for. Help us live in that every minute of every day. We ask these things in the name of the Father who created us, in the name of the Son who set us free, in the name of the Holy Spirit who dwells within us.
Amen. Just before we sing our final song, I just want to remind you to join us in Breezeway 1 for a time of reflection, refreshment, and relationship. I got to use 3 R's, I guess. Let's sing together. 1, 2, 3, love endures forever, for he is good, he is above all things. His love endures forever. Sing praise, sing praise. With a mighty hand and outstretched arms, his love endures forever. God bless. Thanks for being here today.